RadioNewcastle.com.
FM Radio Newcastle. You'll hear it first every time on FM Radio Newcastle. BBC News Power. BBC Radio Newcastle. Tempesters. Go ahead, Northern Gateshead. Radio Newcastle. BBC Newcastle. 95.4 FM.
Aircheckdownloads.com.
BBC Radio Newcastle. BBC FM Radio Newcastle. Hottest news, coolest music. Radio Newcastle. The lunchtime news hour. Radio Newcastle. BBC News Power. FM Radio Newcastle. You'll hear it first every time on FM Radio Newcastle.
Aircheck.com.
BBC Radio Newcastle. Radio Newcastle. Radio Newcastle. The lunchtime news hour. Radio Newcastle. BBC FM Radio Newcastle. 95.4. Radio Newcastle. The coolest music. Radio Newcastle. Hottest news, coolest music. Radio Newcastle. 95.4. Radio Newcastle. FM's coolest music. Radio Newcastle. BBC News Power. FM Radio Newcastle. News Radio, BBC Newcastle. Durham, Tyne and Weir and Northumberland. FM Radio Newcastle. You'll hear it first every time on FM Radio Newcastle. BBC. Radio Newcastle 95.4. FM hit music. BBC Radio Newcastle. Tempesters. Go ahead, Northern Gateshead. Radio Newcastle. BBC News Power. BBC Radio Newcastle. Radio Newcastle. The coolest music. BBC Radio Newcastle. The coolest music.